If you are here for round 3, this is back by popular demand of Leah and Kimberly going head to head. You are in the right spot. So we get so much feedback on this. We have such a following for this particular head to head that it's one of the few that I do every year. So it's always a lot of fun. And of course, it always dovetails on the Melinda Brody and Company benchmark study. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But head to head is not a podcast and it's not a webinar. It's a conversation. So where you are invited to, as Leah said this morning, be a fly on the wall, but we'd actually like for you to actively participate. So it's about that conversation. It's about that good information going on. And again, you're part of that. So don't hesitate to use that chat this morning. And Leah, thank you for coming back, sharing the good results, and giving us an opportunity to talk about things that salespeople can be doing right now to change their business and make an impact.
It's totally my pleasure, Kimberly. I look forward to this every year. And I love what you said about it is a conversation, because as some of the participants know, Kimberly and I go way back. So it's really a conversation among all of us as friends and talking about the industry and trends and sharing some tips and resources. So I always look forward to it, and thank you for having me.
So, and we always know, I mean, with Leah and I, because we are travel buddies, we are friends, we do hang out together. But we're going to try to keep it professional today, guys. So no animal talk. We're not going to talk about Elvis, her pet steer. And who has 2 new girlfriends. So I don't know what's going on there, but Leah's about to she now has a herd of cows.
He's a player. And because we go way back, Kimberly always gives me the list of do not talk about this. You don't share this story, that story. So we kind of know where the skeletons are hidden, don't we, Kimberly? So we'll keep this.
It's mutual self-destruction there.
We'll keep it on the up and up and
yes,
stick to
will. All right. So if you are joining us, you probably know who I am, but just in case, my name is Kimberly Mackey and my company is New Home Solutions. I do hail from Tampa, Florida, but I work all over. So anywhere in the Northern Hemisphere. So I work with builders, developers, and large brokerages. I like to say that I'm the person that people call when they want sales to be the engine that drives the train rather than running it off the tracks. So I do a lot of management consulting with making sure all the parts and pieces and the processes and procedures and everything supports your sales efforts. But as part of that, I also do sales training and sales coaching and management, sales management coaching, as well as I do traction for builders, and I work with a large number of growing building companies, again, to make sure and set up all their processes and procedures using traction. If you're not familiar with traction, it's a book by Gino Wickman, and it's a whole system on management processes. So if I can help you with any of that, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. That's my specialty. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it, Leah.
Yep,
so,
you are.
And I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Okay, well, I'm Leah Turner, and today I'm representing Melinda Brody and Company, which is the premier video shopping company. And we'll talk a little bit about what video shopping is, but what I like to come on with Kimberly once a year is share our results, which is called the benchmark study. And this is the data and the research that we have found that's taken place in the past year. So it's really a good benchmark for us to kind of get some idea, put our finger on the pulse of what's happening out there in the industry. Also a sales trainer like Kimberly, and have had the pleasure, she and I have spoken together, traveled together, and I'm just excited to be here and share some of this exciting information that we have from Melinda Brody and Company.
Well, I appreciate you being here and sharing this study. I mean, there's such valuable information in the study. So before we get to that, I want to do just a quick little commercial. I have started a new thing, a new program, and this is for sales leaders or aspiring sales leaders. I actually have several who are in sales right now but are interested in growing their career and becoming perhaps a future sales leader, or even just figuring out how can I lead from where I am today. So it's a peer-to-peer group. It is a mastermind group. We keep the groups small, so I don't let them grow beyond like 5 or 6 people, so that everybody gets an opportunity to shine. So it's not like a big mastermind of like 30 people where you'll have you have 2 people who talk and everybody else just sits in silence. So it's a lot of fun. I am thoroughly enjoying these groups. I learn from them as much as they learn from me. We read together, and we talk about what's actually going on in our world. It's real time, and we strategize together on how we can help to solve problems and challenges and really anything that's going on in their world. So a lot of fun. I invite you to participate in this. It is affordable. And again, it's something that anybody, whether you're an aspiring sales leader, you just want to figure out where you are. Lead from the side is about not getting in front of people and not pushing them from the back. It's about walking beside people and how to lead, and you can lead from wherever you are. So you can reach me at info@newhomesolutions.com or at the email that was on the previous slide. Either way will get me. And I can send you the information about it. So without further ado, let's talk about these results that you saw.
Yes.
From 21 and this says 21 and 22. Is this right? I guess
That's
it would
correct.
be right because we're in 23 now.
We're in
That's
2023. Right. Yes. And first of all, congratulations on the Academy Lead from the Side. Such a needed piece in our industry. So kudos to you.
Thanks.
Yeah, so these are the results from the benchmark study. And as Kimberly mentioned, that we're looking at 2022 because we just collected the data from 2022 and the data comes out in March. So March of 2023, we'll have the 2023 or 2024, we'll have the 2023 data. So basically what we do when we video shop, and I want to say last year we probably video shopped 45 different builders from across the country, equating to about 1,400 sales associates. So this is a compilation of all of that data from all the salespeople. And we take a look at 6 primary categories: the approach and introduction, builder story, model demonstration, home site demo, closing, and follow-up. So every year I get even super excited because the scores continue to rise and rise and rise. So if you look, Kimberly, 97% of our salespeople that were shopped last year, they do the approach, they do the introduction. That includes using registration. That includes all of the things that come with that beginning piece when the prospect walks in your door. So we saw a nice uptick with that.
That's huge.
That is huge. I mean, I can't wait till it gets to be 100%. I'll just have a heart attack or something. Builder story, while it went up 1%, it's still not very good. 50%. That means only 50% actually included a builder story in their sales presentation. And we'll talk about that in a little bit because builder story is your brand. Model demonstration, another huge success from 79% up to 94%. So less people are going, hey, go take a walk through the models and let me know if you have questions. They're actually walking with their prospects. Home site demonstration, another uptick to 77%. Closing, closing never scores really high in our benchmark study, but
that one hurts.
It went down. It went down to 52%, and that means only 52% of those that we shopped actually suggested moving forward with the purchase of a new home. And I have to note here that when our shoppers go out, they are ready, willing, and able buyers. And so, that's an area. This is where we kind of go, that's an area to focus on. And then finally, follow up. While we did see an increase in people following up within 24 hours of a prospect coming into their sales office, it's still not where it should be. In my opinion, that number should be 100%. There's really no reason not to follow up. And I'm assuming while we're talking, Kimberly, that everybody on this call knows what video shopping is. And it's a tool that we utilize in our industry where somebody comes into your sales office pretending to be a prospect or a buyer, and you are videotaped, the salesperson's videotaped. That data is then given to Melinda Brody's in-house team of scorers. And there's about 150 different categories that you can be scored on. Then that data is collected and sent to the sales manager along with the video. So it really allows you to get a really good baseline of what's going on in your sales office and what your salesperson is doing great, and then what areas they may need to have a little bit of training or improvement in.
So, and just for clarification, so you do this both in-person mystery shopping, and recently, since the pandemic, I know that you guys have added video mystery shopping, where you will actually do like a Zoom appointment with an on-site agent.
And you're absolutely right. I mean, we were doing a little of that prior to pandemic land, but when COVID hit and everybody kind of had to pivot and start selling a new way, we were getting requests from clients, hey, this is how we're doing our presentations now. So we started doing the video shopping, or the video analysis of Zoom calls. So we do actually both of those. And then the other thing to note here, Kimberly, too, that's interesting in the past couple of years with our on-site or our online sales counselors, that's become the hub, right? So most of the time, the appointments go through the OSC and then are disseminated to the sales team. So as the times change and technology advances, we respond to that based on what our clients want.
Yeah, and that there's a second benchmark study that you guys participate in with Blue Gypsy, and that it also provides a look into what those online sales counselors are doing.
Yeah, and so she would be a wonderful.
This is more focused on on-site people.
Correct. And Leah 1, Leah 2, Leah Katzfellows, she handles that piece of it. And we can actually track what happens when a lead comes through to the OSC, how long it takes to respond, how long they follow up, what's going on with the OSC. And I think that's such a valuable piece, because the OSC is such a critical piece now in that the sales cycle, right?
Without a doubt, and will continue to be, regardless of what technology brings our way, because we need them. Our on-site salespeople are so busy and are seeing so many people, and we're expecting so much more of them because the buying cycle and the building cycle has expanded so much. So when they're not selling, there's so much more work that they're having to do. So we're finding them out in the field, walking homes, following up, managing that pipeline. So we need someone who truly is dedicated to providing that information, scheduling those appointments, helping us to qualify those buyers, and really, warming things up for us.
Well,
so they're,
and as you said,
asset.
Following up, continue to follow up, because not everybody that walks into your sales office is ready to buy today. There are some people in our market, Florida, for example, you've got some people that are down here on vacation and they're not retiring for 2 or 3 more years. Your on-site doesn't have time or want to deal with that, but your OSC can put together, a drip campaign or whatever that is to continually touch those people until they make that decision to move forward. So it's such a huge, important part of our process. Totally
long-term nurturing is something that, honestly, since 2014, we've kind of been in this up market. We've had little blips, the end of 2019, last year, the last 3 months of the year, where everybody went, everything's coming to a grinding halt. But those who have been engaging in long-term nurturing campaigns don't experience those declines as much as others. I left this slide up here for a reason. I do want to circle back to something you said. So these closing numbers, this 52%. So we know, and this correlates to the studies that we've done for years, that about 50% of all sales calls, whether it's new home sales or other, end without a salesperson ever attempting to close one time.
Right.
That's a stat that we can control, because I always say, if we open better, we can close more. So if you don't like closing, that's something that you can do something about by opening better. And then the assumptive close is the close. Like, it's so easy and so comfortable. We'll circle back a little bit on that. But it's interesting to me that the approach and intro score went up so high, And yet our closing score didn't reflect that, because if you do better opening, you've earned the right to ask for that sale.
And I think people look at closing as a verb, an action that I have to do at the end of the sales presentation, where it's not. Like you just said, closing starts the moment they walk in the door. So if you can start putting those parameters, those steps in place, you're closing the whole time. And then when you get to the end, it's not this uncomfortable, awkward, hey, do you want to move forward? It's naturally and organically evolved to that point where it just makes sense to say, oh my gosh, we found you the house, the home site, you want the builder, etc. Let's talk about what those steps look like moving forward. But if people don't understand how to do that, it is that awkward last minute, you want to buy a home, and you have not prepped along the way. So totally agree with that.
Yeah, and one of the things that we wanted to talk about, just kind of keeping things in order of the critical path itself, or the shop categories that you have, is that opening and that intro, that rapport building, whatever you call it, where we find that common ground with people. We get our energies in sync, not to go all new age on you, but you know what, you can tell when we're in alignment, we're in sync, and we're like, oh yeah. But one of the really interesting things that I've seen, not only on site, when live and in person, is the struggle to do that we've somehow lost that ability. I know in my own training, I challenge my salespeople to be able to go at least 3 minutes in a role play situation before they start talking about product.
And 3 minutes. Not that much. That's not that much.
But it seems huge for them. Like, it's a real struggle. So to get to 3 minutes without talking about product. So and video shops is even worse.
It is worse, because what our tendency is to jump right into sales mode. But what we don't realize, if we take that first 5, 10, 15 minutes, a little more than 3, and 3 is already hard enough, but if we take that time to ask the right questions, to do the right discovery, to build the rapport, to get everyone at ease, it actually makes our job easier as a salesperson, because they're going to give you all the information that you need to be able to customize and put together your presentation specific to their needs. And I think it's awkward. I think people, if we just kind of take a deep breath and go, and even tell them, hey, before we get into showcasing this home, I'd like to spend a few moments with you, kind of get a feel for what it is you're looking for. Tell me a little about your family. We talked about this, I think, last time, the ninja selling. And in that book, they talk about 4 questions, and just utilizing some time up front, talking about family, occupation, recreation, dreams, getting everybody to feel a little more comfortable. And that is one thing I see so often. People just jump, hi, my name is Leah, let me show you the model. And if you miss that piece, that discovery piece, you're going to be kind of playing catch up the whole time.
Yeah, I recently watched a couple of your video shops that you did, and they were video mystery shops where it was a video appointment. It was a Zoom type appointment. And because there had been some back and forth via email, the salesperson forgot to even introduce themselves. And I saw a couple of them. It was like within 15 seconds, they were, oh, I see you inquired about the such and such plan. And they pull it up on their screen. And I'm like, did I miss part of this video? Did somebody only send me an excerpt? Like, I was so confused. I'm like, what happened here? That we just immediately went into product. And in talking to the salespeople, they're like, well, yeah, I mean, I knew that our OSC had given us the information, and I knew what plan they were inquiring about. I had emailed them. So I didn't think to stop and really talk to them about their situation.
Right.
I mean, it seems like a logical transition just to go, okay, well, let's not waste their time. Let's get right to the point. But if we don't understand their why, and we don't understand, what was it about that plan, even if the buyer says, hey, I'm interested in the such and such plan, the Sanibel plan or whatever, then, well, tell me about that plan. Tell me what it is. Like, you can still question, and then you can circle back and start talking about their family and their work and how they live in their home, and without ever asking how many bedrooms, how many square feet. Like, those are questions that I say, unless you're Alice in Wonderland and You want to go down the proverbial rabbit hole? Stop asking those questions.
Those questions give you nothing. They tell you nothing. One of the things that Ben and I at Ben Marks, the president of Melinda Brody and Company, one of the things that we do every year, and a part of it is based on the benchmark study, we kind of look at these results and go, what's our theme? What is our theme for the year? So for example, in 2022, our theme for the year was getting back to basics, because we had just come off a crazy couple of years, as you said, and it was all about getting back to what the basics were. This year, 2023, our theme is become a storyteller. You as a salesperson must become a master storyteller, because you're telling the story to your prospect about what their life is going to look like when they move into this home. And as the author or the writer of this story, you're not able to do that unless you understand how their family lives. Why are they moving? What are they looking forward to? What are their children's names? What do the children like to do? So if you look at the discovery process almost as getting data to create this beautiful story and become the storyteller for your prospects, it kind of shifts how we think about asking those questions. We're not being nosy Nelly, tell me this, tell me that. You're collecting valuable data so that you can paint this picture or write this story and put your prospects in that story, so that at the end, there's a happy ending and everybody is moving forward. So that's kind of been our goal this year when we're doing our training and speaking, is to talk about, take a step back and become the storyteller. But you can't tell the story unless you have the data to be able to tell that.
I agree. I've incorporated Story Brand, which is a type of a training I was fortunate to attend at the end of last year. And I've incorporated that into the training that I'm doing with salespeople. And I'm asking them basically, if your buyer was a movie, could you tell me, could you provide the characters? Could you describe the characters? What about the conflict? Because no movie is good without conflict. That's their why. What's motivating them to move? People don't just go one day, hey, let's move for the heck of it. Like there's something that causes them to move. Right. And you as the salesperson, become the catalyst. You're that best friend in the story, right? That urges them along and tells them they can do it and helps to showcase what the solution would be. And you also understand whether it's going to be a happy ending or a sad ending to the story. So what happens? What does it look like after they make this change? And what happens if they don't make the change? So we understand where those pain points are. You know, if you can really write the story, as you said, I want it to be a movie that anybody would want to watch. Mm-hmm. If it's just a movie about how many bedrooms and how many square feet and when do you want to move and what school district do you want to, I'm not watching that movie. That's boring. That's a very boring movie. And I just saw somebody in the chat said, you've got to be the Oprah Winfrey. I love that. But you've got to get to that human element. You've got to ask the questions, because what happens is not only are you collecting fabulous data to write that story, but the more they're talking about themselves and their situation and their challenges, they're becoming much more comfortable, and you're gaining, what's the key word? Trust. So now they're starting to trust you, and you're listening to them. And that's the other thing, Kimberly, and I know we've talked about this before too, with discovery, it's great, but if you're not listening and really, you know, being your authentic self and listening to them and being empathetic, you know, people, that's my favorite word. You've got to have empathy. You've got to be able to listen and put yourself and feel their pain. And oh my gosh, you're kidding me. Let's talk about that. The Oprah Winfrey. I love that. I'm going to steal that. Whoever wrote that, because that's so good. Yeah, that's good. it's that human nature piece. It's getting to know them at that level versus, like you said, how many bedrooms, how many baths, how many square feet. That doesn't do anything. No, it doesn't. Before we get too far with the chat going down, I don't want to miss this one. So Beth asked us about the getting to know you process on social media responses. They have a strong social media presence, and I know they get a lot of inquiries that way, as do many builders. So to just, you know, not to go too far off the path here, but I believe that you can inquire when somebody asks you, start a dialogue. Start a conversation. Let's not just send people to the page for the Sanibel plan on our website and invite them to explore our interactive floor plan. Let's find, hey, yes, absolutely. That is a great plan. Tell me, what is it that drew your eye to that? What about it do you like? You can open up a lot of questions. Tell me a little bit about yourself, because we do have other plans that you may not have seen. So in order for me to be able to better help you.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with having like a short little 5 or 6 question script or survey in order for me to help you better. It's got a couple questions. People love that. Take this little quiz. What do you prefer, this or that? We used to do that in the old Ryland days when Kimberly and I were at Ryland. Remember, they would come to the sales center and it was like, what's your style? Before you walked into the design center to pick out, there was a My Style quiz. And it kind of helped us understand, are they more coastal? Are they more, traditional, what that is? So if the OSCs, if everything is starting via online, I'd come up with a fun little 5, 6, 7 question survey questionnaire to kind of get a feel for some of those things, instead of saying, how many kids do you have? When are you moving? Why are you moving? How much money? Make it fun. Make it something that you can engage and interact in, because it is sometimes a little more challenging when you're doing everything via email back and forth versus face to face. So anything you can do to break the ice and make them feel more comfortable, if it's a fun little quiz or something like that, do that to get that information.
And let them know you're a human being. Like, just because they're talking to you via email, they want to know that you're giving personal responses, not canned responses that are automated. So while there's a time for that, and certainly that should be woven into your personal responses, those personal responses are going to be what sets you apart. So
totally.
Sue, thank you. Yeah, be the Oprah Winfrey. I do have a free discovery question download. So if you struggle and you're trying to figure out what kind of questions should I ask, I always say curious salespeople make the best salespeople. So, I tell the story all the time, but I was training a brand new person in new home sales, and we had a buyer who came in, and it was a man and his wife. The man happened to be very into Harley Davidson motorcycles. And the reason he came through the door telling us this story. He said, I have Harley Davidsons. I see you have a tandem car garage. And for those of you not familiar with tandem garages, it's where, so it was 2 cars wide and 2 cars deep on one of the bays, which is a perfect place for a workshop or somebody to tinker around with their Harley Davidsons in his case. So here's what I know about Harley Davidsons. They started in Milwaukee. Every week is Bike Week in Daytona, Florida, because I've never been to Daytona when it didn't seem like it was Bike Week. I'm sure there's an actual date for that, but they're always there. There's a Sturgis, because I spent a lot of time in the West. So out West, at some point in the summertime, there's a big motorcycle gathering called Sturgis. I know that more chrome is better when you have a Harley. And I know what they sound like because they have a very distinctive noise, right? So after that, I'm pretty much done with my Harley Davidson conversation. I don't know anymore. But I stood and talked to this man for 45 minutes. Now, some of you are having a total freak out. You're going, I can't talk to people for 45 minutes. It was extreme. I grant you. The whole time, though, his wife is standing there with her arms crossed, not participating in the conversation. So when I could finally get a word in edgewise, I looked at her and turned the conversation to her and said, are you into motorcycles too? At which point she completely opened up, and no, in all caps, exclamation point, no, she was not. She didn't like her husband being involved in motorcycles. She didn't want to move, but he was so insistent that I said, so he drug you kicking and screaming. When I said that, it kind of broke the ice. And she laughed and she goes, well, almost, not quite, not literally, but yes, almost. And I said, so it sounds like, though, you love your current home and that you're not quite on board with this move and maybe not as far along in the process as he is. And she goes, nope, that's exactly right. And I said, so great. Tell me about your current home. And she starts telling me all the great stuff she loves about her current home. And it was fantastic information. And then I followed up by asking, now, if you're like most people, you have that list of, in my next home, I must have I'm like, what does that look like?
Right.
And, I diffused it by saying, if you're like most people, and
Mhm.
ask that question. And then she had this laundry list. Well, if I could change things, it would be this, 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 and this. Now I had one home with a tandem car garage. So really I had one home to show them. So, and we did happen to have a field model of that one that was under construction that I could take them out to see. I could have easily just gone out there and shown them that product. But if I didn't take that time to really understand where she was coming from and where
Right.
that hesitancy is, they were definitely not going to move forward. Now, they
No.
didn't move forward. They didn't buy on the spot that day, but they did come back and buy. And we stayed in touch with them and we followed up with them. And my salesperson was kicking me the whole time going, this is ridiculous. You're spending way too much time here. And I'm like, that sale would have never happened if I hadn't gotten to really understand the pain points and where they were, as a couple, because she wasn't on board with that. And we run into that all the time.
Right. You do. And you sometimes, and this gets into just behaviors and personalities. Somebody is more of the talker and they're going to tell you everything, but you've got to stop and take the time to, hey, what about you? I'm just imagining this wife going, oh my God, here he goes again with the Harley story. I've heard about 19,000 times, but a wise salesperson is going to go, okay, how about you? Give her time to talk. The other thing I wanted to just jump on with Harley Davidson, because my goodness, I use this in a training example oftentimes when we talk about the builder story, because you talk about a brand that has a loyalty.
Right.
Harley Davidson. Okay, how many people are running around with, Lennar tattoos or, Ryan Holmes or whatever tattoos? They are so loyal to their brand that they will get their body tattooed with their brand. So what I try to use that parallel when we kind of edge into builder story. Wouldn't it be awesome if our builders had that type of loyalty? And you don't know anything about Harley, but you just taught me they have a lot more chrome is better. They make a certain noise, all these kinds of things. Those are the USPs. Not to jump too quickly into the builder story, but I was like, oh my goodness, this is so parallel. Wouldn't you love it if your prospects, oh my God, you've got to go to ABC Builder. They have the most windows and the most, natural light coming in. They are this, they're that. Look, I got a tattoo of ABC Builder. Wouldn't that be like incredible in our industry?
Yeah, I really haven't seen anybody getting their builder, whoever built their home, a tattoo on their body for that.
But they're putting it on a motorcycle.
But we got a long way to go.
We do.
But
if you can look at that as a parallel and look at that loyalty and the USPs and the branding that they've done. I mean, here's this man that was the first thing out of his mouth. So I don't know. There's just I use Harley Davidson a lot because those people are brand loyal for sure.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yes.
So that rapport building though, guys, I always say the best place to start is at the beginning. I even have a slide that says from The Sound of Music that shows Julie Andrews with the kids in the field, and let's start at the very beginning. Like then all my classes are singing that song all day in their head, and they're annoyed with me.
At the very beginning.
Yeah, sorry guys, now you're gonna be singing it all day.
It's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, I know we're probably dating ourselves a little bit. So, but we start in the middle. We start with product, and then you're trying to backtrack the whole time, because without that rapport and without that trust, your buyer is going to be just looking at you as that salesperson, which is, as I talk to salespeople, that's the last thing they want to be seen at. They got into this business to help people.
Right.
How can you help them if you don't get to know them?
Well, and that's why that whole storytelling piece is so important, because that's when you're really getting to know them and you're being authentic, and that's the one thing too. The way Kimberly tells a story and the way I tell a story could be very different, but she's authentic in her own right. I'm authentic in my own right. And you've got to do that in your own right. You've got to, what works best for you. Exactly. And the quote by Maya Angelou, at the end of the day, people don't remember what you said or what you did, but they remember the way you made them feel. So if we can take that and utilize it a little bit in the building industry, I don't think we've done that before, but there really is that. How do you feel? You go to 1,000 different builders, but you might come home and go, that Kimberly, she and I just really bonded over the Harleys, and she got it. She knew that chrome was important. So that small step is building rapport, trust, and making you memorable. So it's so important to take the time to build that rapport and get to know them on that Oprah Winfrey level, so to speak, right?
Yeah. And I think if you're very transparent about it, so, I tell people, if I don't know something about what they're talking about, like one of my favorite discovery questions is to say, how do you mean? So if somebody says something to me, I don't even know how to respond, but I know I need more information. I will lean back and very calmly and go, turn my head sideways. How do you mean? It's not grammatically correct. The response that I typically get from it is people will laugh and go, yeah, I probably need to explain that. And they'll tell you what you need to know. So if you get stuck, that's one of those great discovery questions. It's also wonderful in overcoming objections when you need to question the objection. Like you can use it in a lot of different circumstances. So write that one down. Even though it's grammatically incorrect, and I understand I'm encouraging you to use improper grammar, because you're not using the word why, because you can sound really judgy when you say why. So I use it in place of why, or what do you mean? Yeah. And that can be confrontational, right? So it diffuses that situation. And I'm all about just making that buyer really comfortable in the process.
Totally.
So,
totally. Good. That's a really good question. And it also gets them to engage more. And I think that's one of the things that salespeople put so much pressure on themselves. I've got to get up there and talk the entire time. Actually, no, you don't. You may only need to talk 20% of the time. It's really about them talking and sharing with you what it is that they're looking for. And then you're the one coming up with the solution. So, there's nothing worse than a salesperson that talks the entire time. The prospects are just not asked any questions. So that fact, we're really hanging on to building rapport, but it is so important to ask the questions. And I see so many times that that piece is missing. Asking questions, bonding with them, building the rapport. You got to do that. That's where you get your most important data to be able to set the stage for the rest of the presentation.
Absolutely. So again, I do have those discovery questions. It's a free download on my website. So you can go to newhomesolutions.com. A little pop-up will come up. You just put your information in. And most of you are probably already receiving emails from me anyway. So it'll just put your information in and it'll send it right to your email. So and those are based on, as Leah said, those forward questions. That's family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. So I actually have it broken down in that. And there's a checklist at the top of it that tells you everything the discovery process needs to do. So it's really understanding their wants and their dreams. It's also qualifying them. So when we understand and wants, needs, and dreams, and we can separate them out, so we can help people if maybe they're reaching a little bit. The dream is a little bigger than what they can afford. Let's focus on those needs first and the wants. And again, be very transparent. Tell buyers, hey, I realize we're stretching your budget a little bit. Let's stop and let's talk about those things that are an absolute must-have. And then let's then focus on the things that we'd like to have on top of it. Those wants, what are they? I don't think sales is something that we do to people. I think it's something that we do with, and we're so fortunate to work in this industry where people come to us and ask us to help us.
Right. And one of the questions that I always like is, tell me what's important to you in a home, what's important to you in your kitchen, what's important to you in a home site. So if they tell you that, now you've got that information. And you're not, if a big kitchen is important to them, you're not going to show them a home with a smaller kitchen. They're going to give you that data that, like I said earlier, just going to help you do that entire sales presentation. If they're adamant about having a big backyard, well, then that's a buying signal. So a lot of this, what's important to you in this listening, you're going to get all these clues and buying signals that you need to be successful. So when it does come to the point where you're suggesting moving forward, you're really kind of reiterating back to them, Kimberly, you told me it was important to have a large kitchen. I think the Sanibel does that. It was important to you to have a big yard because you've got those two little cute dogs running around. I think this home site 27 works for that. You wanted a builder who's transparent and communicates with you. ABC Builder does that. And you mentioned that you need to make a decision in the next 2 weeks. So it sounds like we've accomplished what we set out to do today. The next step is I'm going to get some paperwork together, make it flow in that natural way. That removes the awkwardness of, do you want to move forward? Do you want to buy this house? If you're providing solutions, your new home solutions. Kimberly, you named your company the best name ever. Woo, woo. That's what you're doing. But you can't provide solutions if you don't know what the problems are, right?
Yeah.
And
it's like really going to a doctor. It's like going to a doctor and you just go in, you sit on the exam table and the doctor comes in. They don't ask you any questions. They don't even ask you why you're there. They don't even ask you what hurts, right? And they just say, hey, the last rep that was here was telling me all about these great pills, so I'm going to write you a script for them. you're prescribing something without even understanding what the challenge is. Exactly. And I'll tell you, the benefit of doing this, and I know we're spending a lot of time on discovery, but that's with good reason. Because if you do a great job with that, you will close more sales. But you'll also meet some really cool people and you'll get to know them in a very interesting and a different way, so that if the building process is longer, is drawn out, or something does, stuff happens, right? In the build process, stuff happens in the contract process. There's that trust and there's that foundation, so that the stuff becomes not a big deal, because that you approach it as it's not a big deal. And you just go, hey, this happened, need to let you know. And here's what we're going to do. This is how we're going to address it. It is going to delay your closing process by a couple weeks, but I wanted to give you as much heads up as possible. And they go, well, don't like the news, but you know what? Yes, you told us that this was going to happen and that it could happen, and we knew to be prepared. So thank you for sharing that information with me, as opposed to just having a complete meltdown on you. So
well, and Kimberly and Carol, when they did their sales power hour a couple of weeks ago, it was fantastic, and it was all about AI, artificial intelligence, and how that's really going to be a part of our business moving forward. But at the end of the day, we in new home sales are still in a relationship business. I think the AI and the analytics will help us be better. But you're still, no robot's going to replace that, like what Kimberly said.
No robot's going to hold your hand. Yeah. No robot's going to let you cry on their shoulder.
Or have empathy or question and listen. So we're always going to be a relationship building business, and the AI will assist us with all of that. But, it really is about building those relationships and developing that trust and rapport. Absolutely.
Totally. So, and you had sent me in the pre-show some notes about set up the close with specific questions. And you did that so well with the summary close there that you just did, where you can summarize the things that they have told you, and you transition that into setting those expectations in what I call the assumptive close, which is nothing more than the next step is blah, blah, blah. And then after that, we're going to do this. And you don't get too far ahead of yourself. You've got 1 or 2 steps ahead that you're setting that expectation, because people don't buy homes every day. There are certainly corporate investors who do this, and there are those people. That's a different thing. I'm talking about people who are moving their family, talking about primary buyers. But even if you are dealing with investors, you still have to have a relationship with those investors, because getting an investor on paper may be easier. Getting them to close is a whole lot harder. So you might as well go ahead and take the time to understand what's important to them, how to communicate with them, and everything right up front.
It also helps in that, when we talked about the benchmark study and closing always being last, I think that what we're kind of talking about right now and sharing with the audience are ways to set up that close. Don't be afraid at the very beginning when they walk in. What are your expectations for today? When will you be making a decision? There's a big difference. Hey, I'm just here in Florida on vacation. I'm not retiring for another 5 years, versus I just got relocated. I need to make a decision in the next month. Don't fear those upfront questions, because it's going to take pressure off at the end, because you're going to have this information, and it's not going to be that total awkward moment. I've seen it on thousands of video shops where it's like, well, like, what do we do next? And the salesperson's sweating, and you can tell it's like, I know I should ask for the close, but he doesn't have enough information. But if you've asked at the beginning and you've got that information, that you're setting an agenda, so to speak. So at the end, again, Kimberly, you said you needed to really make a decision by by the end of June because school, children, et cetera, looks like, based on what you said, what was important about the home site, the builder, that we found this. Correct me if I haven't answered all your questions, and I love this phrase, looks like we've accomplished our mission. So if you set it up as a mission, right? Set it up as our mission today, based on the information you're sharing with me, is to find you this home on this home site with a builder that you are comfortable with and a community that you like. That's our mission, right? So, and I'm a big trial close, assumptive close queen as well. Hey, do we sound like a builder you would work with? Absolutely. Does the Sanibel plan, is that kitchen big enough for you, Kimberly? You mentioned you loved cooking. Sanibel plan works. So then the closing is really just sharing back or mirroring back what they've told you. I think we've accomplished our mission today. I'm so excited for you. That's so much more for me, as somebody who is not a hard-nosed closer. It's more of being a problem solver. You're not going out there, I got to sell them a house and close them on this house. You're going, I want to solve a problem and find the best solution for them. And now you've done it. And then it's not as awkward, is it? You don't have to, there's no, oh, how do I say this next? You're just, here's what we want to do. We're doing it. We've done it. And I'm telling you that.
Yeah. And you're checking in every step of the way. So, you said maybe you're only talking 30% of the time, but a good rule of thumb at a max, you should be talking half the time, because the good Lord gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. You should use them accordingly, is what I always say. So,
and I like that.
And you're doing all the talking, that might be a problem.
But a lot of that talking is questioning or confirming, like you just said, Kimberly, each step of the way. Does home site 27 work for you? You wanted that big backyard for a cute little eggnog to be running around in. Does it work for you? Yeah, this is the best backyard ever. Does this work? Yeah, that's the best kitchen I've ever seen. So what are they doing? Now they're giving you the green light. Yes, yes, yes. So when you come back to talk about what those next steps are, and always make sure when you're telling your customer or your prospects what you're going to do, put in, and then we're going to come back to the sales office and go over this information and do a recap. So when you're recapping, it's almost like the next logical step is to move forward because we've accomplished that mission today.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the model demo. And I want to throw a whole bomb out there on model demonstration. So one of my pet peeves is salespeople who just send people through the model. So people don't come in just to see your model. I don't care if you ever, and builders don't have a heart attack on me, stay with me to the end. I don't care if you ever demonstrate the model. You will, but do it at an appropriate time. All of this stuff should be done at an appropriate time. So for me, if that's not the home that's right for them, why am I spending time showing them this home when in fact I'm going to have to maybe go out in the field and show them another one, or show them a floor plan on our interactive floor plans, or or on paper and go through to show them something else? Why am I spending time talking about a home? So I like to get people in the kitchen. I like to go through this discovery process, get really comfortable with them. And then when I understand and in my mind know which home they're describing to me that works for them, then we move on and I present that home. Now we might come back to the model to get ideas about, options or decorating or finishings or, something to that effect. But model demonstration to me shouldn't be you chasing people through the model, because nobody wants to be chased. That's very unattractive. And it may not be relevant, but it is important. And I think the point of the shops too, that it is important that you are demonstrating the home that's right for them, and not just going through doing the Vanna White and going, here's the kitchen, here's the den, here's the primary bedroom, this is the backyard. Like, they can see that, right?
Right.
They know what that looks like. Yeah. We got to invite them to look at each piece of that home and ask them how they feel about it. How would you arrange your furniture? Who's going to use this room? How would you use this room?
And I totally agree with you. I mean, if you've got a 2-story model and they only want a 1-story, ranch plan, obviously that's not the home for them. But what it is good to be able to utilize is to showcase your builder. So maybe you utilize your model demonstration more as if it's not the home to point out different things. You see these baseboards, this is standard. You see these ceilings, these are standard in all of our homes. So you're still, you can utilize it in a way to segue into the builder story and some of the things that your builder does from a construction basis that's different. Because most people don't understand when they come in, they don't understand that they're not looking at or comparing apples to apples. So it is important to talk about what we do that you may, when you're talking to other builders, some of the things I'm going to point out, we do as included features where it may be an upgrade with another builder. So you can, you can utilize your model demonstration in different ways to meet your needs, and God knows we need to increase that builder story. So if that's an opportunity for you to kind of showcase some of the fine craftsmanship, we do, tile in all the wet areas. This is our standard tile. Then I see that would be worthwhile to kind of point out to differentiate yourself from the competition.
Yeah. Yes, you without a doubt, you can use it that way. So my point here is don't just send people through the model. They didn't come in just to see the model. They came in to find a home. So let's help them find a home. Sometimes we get caught up in these things that we think we need to do. Like my realtors, I tell them, my general real estate agents, I'm like, don't say we're going to go out and look at homes today. Because if you tell somebody we're going to go look at homes today, guess what you're going to do? You're going to look at homes. You're not going to find a home. You're not going to find the home. You're going to look at homes. And guess what? Tomorrow we're going to do the same thing. Until someday, and the goal there with the general real estate agent is if I show them enough stuff, eventually they'll tell me what they like and tell me they want to buy it. That's selling by process of elimination. And I don't think that's why general realtors lose so many of their prospects, because they try to do that and the buyers just get frustrated and say, nobody's listening to me. Let's do it differently.
Yeah, let's totally do it. And to your point, I had a mentor that used to say, even a blind squirrel finds an acorn sometimes. So do you want to take this squirrel out to 5,000 homes? Not to mention you're schlepping them around doing all of that. It makes so much more sense to be the new home advisor. You're not just the Julie McCoy or the Vanna White that will take a look at all of this stuff. Your role really is to listen, take everything in the funnel, and what comes through, boom, the Sanibel plan based on what you've told me fits all of your needs. It checks all of the boxes. And I don't want to show you the Fort Myers plan or the Cape Coral plan. We're going straight to the Sanibel because based on what you've said, this one works for you and your family, right? That's your role. You're not just a demonstrator. You are a new home advisor. They're coming to you, help me find something that works for me and my family.
And for those of you who aren't mine and Leah's age, we're dating ourselves a little bit. Julie McCoy was the cruise director for the Love Boat.
The Love
which was a show on long ago
when
we were mere babies when that was on.
Girlfriend, I've said that before, and I've got like some blank stares, and I turned to the guy and I'm like, you have no idea who Julie McCoy is, do you? He said, nope. I go, the Love Boat? Nope. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, I've had to update a lot of my movie references. I say Bueller, and nobody knows what I'm talking about anymore. So yeah,
forgive me on the Julie McCoy, but you get the message. You're not just the tour
You're not
guide
the cruise director.
Right. You are there. You have a mission, and your mission is to find out what they want, what will work for them, and then provide them. We're going back to Kimberly's, the name of her company, New Home Sales Solutions. Go find them the solution, right?
Yes. Be that solution provider without a doubt.
Correct.
Yes. And those closing questions are easy when you have built that relationship. And I think that's really the key here. So even so, not everyone will buy on the first visit. So, being creative with how you follow up is, and I know you always tell a story about Melinda Brody, who was a dear friend to both of us, and you obviously with your working relationship with her on top of that friendship. I love this story. So share the story about the bird seed. I just think that's really cool.
Well, the story is really about follow-up, because quite frankly, when I get these reports and I just go, why can't they follow up? It's an email, it's a phone call, it's a letter. It's the easiest thing to get points on, right? And so, but if you're going to do it, don't be, oh, thanks so much for coming to 123 Main Street. Call me if you have any questions, because that's not memorable. So back in the very beginning, Melinda Brody and Company has been around almost 40 years now, believe it or not. And when the company started, there were no video shoppers, et cetera. There was Melinda Brody, and she was literally doing the shops, and it wasn't even video camera back then. That's really dating it. Julie McCoy wasn't even born then. Okay. So she would go in, and one salesperson did asked the questions, built the rapport, found out about her family, found out that she had a pet bird, a little bird, and his name was Scooby. And I actually met Scooby, a little blue parakeet. And a couple days later, because again, no email, we're going back to the pioneer days. A couple days later, in the mail came the follow-up note. Thank you so much, Melinda, for dropping by. I hope that I can help make you and Scooby feel at home at, Horizon Park. And here's a little bag of bird seed for Scooby to welcome him to his new home when you guys move in here. She remembered that story for years. I mean, she's told it, and I don't have a better story. In all these years, that to me has just been, that shows somebody who listened, who did something out of the box. And it's okay to think outside of the box to make it memorable.
It's encouraged.
Right? Exactly. So, that's the type of follow-up we want. That something that people go, oh my God, back to that, the quote, make people feel important. It's how you make these people feel. She told that story a gajillion times about little Scooby, kind of like your man with the Harley. I'm like, okay, I've heard about Scooby, enough with the Scoopmeister. But it's just the perfect example of follow-up and how it has to be personal, customized, relevant, and not just thanks for coming by, for sure.
And you know what? Snail mail right now, just by following up with snail mail, meaning you put a stamp on it and you send that puppy through the mail. When's the last time you got a handwritten note? I even Christmas cards, like I get a handful of them anymore. And I used to send out 100 Christmas cards like I said, it's very limited, and usually business related. Like I just don't do it anymore. And most people don't, because it's so time consuming. So it's special when you do something like that. So,
yes,
and just because it's old school doesn't mean it's bad. So
hey, some of the old school stuff is coming back, and that's that whole back to the basics. Some of these things, people can get overwhelmed with all this technology and emails and this, that. Sometimes it's nice to go open your mailbox and there's not a bill or a solicitor or something like that. There's a nice card that somebody took the time to thank you. I think that a lot of those things that we call old school are kind of coming back,
Yeah. And in the chat, like if you've done something unique, I'd love to see you type that in the chat as we're wrapping up here today.
Yes.
Let's talk one more thing. I've got one more point that I really want to make sure that we get across the finish line here, and then we'll send everybody off to have a fantastic rest of their day. When you cite, you write. So please don't miss going out on site. This is something that I teach as part of my boot camp or my reboot camp, because it's a dying art. Like you got your 100-foot measuring tape, you got your cones, your traffic cones that you can get at Home Depot or a toy store even, and you go out and you have that buyer connect with the land. Mm-hmm. And when they're going to build something from scratch, and yes, we're getting back to doing to-be-builts and building homes from scratch, and you're connecting them to that land. And I always tell this story, and I love this story. It's about she was a mom. It was her and her husband. They were retired military, and they'd been retired for a while. But their children were also active military and were coming back. Everybody was at some point in the next 5 years, everybody was going to be back in the US and no longer be deployed. Wow. So her plan was to move to a community where they could all live, not in the same village necessarily. They weren't all in the same price points. But she wanted to be in this community that was so aptly named. It was called Serenity. And it was out in Phoenix, actually in Goodyear, which is just to the west of Phoenix, and the Estrella mountain range out there.
Oh, pretty.
And she wanted this one home site that I couldn't figure out why anybody would want this home site, because it backed up to a boulder, literally, with one cactus on it. Like being from Florida, like missing the green, I'm like, why would you want to back up to a rock, right? and I kept looking at this home site from the road. And I kept questioning the builder. I'm like, why does this one have such a big premium on it? I don't get it. Well, we took this lady out. She loved the home. She loved the community. It was everything that she wanted it to be. And we went out on that home site right around 5 p.m. one day. And we mapped out where her home was going to be and where her patio was going to be. And we stood there, and the Estrella mountain range at the close of day, I always tried to finish my day there, because as the sun started to set on that mountain range, and the colors would just turn brilliant. If you've ever been in the desert when there's a little bit of scrub on the mountain, and you've seen these sunsets, they turn bright red and bright orange and bright yellow, and then they start to turn purple. And every day, depending on the cloud cover, it's very different. Well, we were standing out on her home site, and the show on the mountain started with the sunset. And we probably stood there in silence, and it seemed like at least a good 5 minutes. And this was an elderly lady who walked with a cane. I'd had to help her over the silt fence in order to even get onto the home site. And she's holding onto my arm. And I remember thinking, wow, she's really squeezing my arm very hard. And I looked over at her, and tears were just pouring down her face. And of course, being the empathetic person that I am, tears start pouring down my face. And I look, and she's like, it's perfect. It's just perfect. Like her whole dream with bringing her family back from around the world to all be living there and be able to congregate in her home together. It all made sense to her. And that was one of the most powerful moments that I've had the opportunity in all the years that I've been doing this to witness. You don't get that. My point on this story is you don't get that from driving by at the front of it. Don't just drive by a home site or point at it on your plat map. Like it matters. It matters where this home is.
That's a fantastic story, and it really does. See, back to storytelling. Kimberly just created a story, and what I love about that, not only the story in general, is that we often forget that the land or the home site is really the most unique piece we have. Sometimes we're so busy pushing a home, we forget about that. I mean, you can build the Sanibel, our new model of the day, on any home site ever, but there's only one home site that has that majestic view. And that's the word I just wrote down when you were describing that, majestic. What if we did this as salespeople? What if we took a look at every single one of our home sites and created some type of a story, right? Look at the emotion that had, that watching the sunset. What is your USP about this home site? Is it the mature trees? Is it, this is where a family of sandhill cranes comes every single night? Is it, whatever that piece is, you can write a story. Look how powerful it was. I mean, I'm sure there's people out there crying right now about that story because
it gives me goosebumps every time I tell it.
It was
really
so
does.
Heartfelt, but every single home site has a story. So what is the uniqueness of, and that's the most unique thing that you are selling are these home sites. What if you wrote a little story about each one of those? How wonderful is that? This is the perfect story. The sun rises while you're having coffee. The majestic sun sets while you're having wine. The birds and the conservation, the pond over there, whatever that is, every home site's got a unique selling proposition.
Yeah, as does every home. So what if we took the time? I love your challenge. What if we all took the time to really understand our community, our home sites, our homes, our floor plans, just like that? And what is the story that they tell so that you recognize it when you hear it from your buyers?
That was a great way to end it, because we started at the beginning talking about storytelling and what a powerful effect between the Scooby, the little bird and the bird seed, and the lady crying. And I'm just envisioning Kimberly helping her over the fence, in the desert out there. But these are stories. That's why 2023 is the year of the storyteller. You're not a salesperson, you're a storyteller, you're a dream maker. Look at it that way. That's so exciting. You're fulfilling people's dreams. You're doing a lot of stuff, and I know it's a difficult job and everybody is so crazy busy, but I feel like if you almost step back and do some of the things that Kimberly and I have been talking about today, your job's going to be easier and more rewarding. Kimberly, I could tell that you were getting chills just telling that story.
It gives me goosebumps every time I tell it. Yeah.
Yes. So that's the power of storytelling. That really is.
So, and we have Connie is sharing a story in our chat too. The buyer knew, right? They saw that water view and they said, that's my reason. That they may not have even known their reason until they saw it right that moment. So beautiful. Thank you very much for sharing that. So thank you all for joining us today. As we could go on for hours about this, but we definitely want to be respectful of your time. I hope you've gotten some really good nuggets. And as always, go apply them. Don't just talk about them, go do them. And Leah and Melinda Brody and Company, thank you for your study you do every year, so we know
Always
how well we're doing.
Always my pleasure to spend time with you, Kimbers. Love it, love it, love it. And a great job today. And go out and take some of these nuggets and apply them this afternoon and let us know. I'd love to hear
We'd
back.
We'd love to hear from you. Yeah, absolutely. So bye guys. Have a wonderful day.
Bye. Thank you.